Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ujwal. I am a current fourth year medical student. Um, it's been a while since I made my last video, so I had a conversation with a friend the other day that got me thinking, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So hopefully this will be a quick video, but I know I say that in a lot of my videos when I start and it doesn't end up being the case. Um, so anyway, I also thought it would be cool to make this video because I'm at the last half of my fourth year medical school, and um, obviously I started this channel around I guess 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, the summer before my first year of medical school, and in addition to offering advice and insights to pre-med students and those coming into medical school, this channel has also sort of served as a journey, if you will, or a diary, if you will, of my journey. Um, and so, getting to getting to the point of this video, I was talking to one of my close friends the other day. I've been a little my schedule's been a little hectic, and so I haven't been able to catch up with a lot of my close friends, and including those who kind of already graduated because I took a research year, so I didn't graduate with the class I started medical school with. Um, anyway, I was having a conversation, and they're in residency already, and we were talking about kind of where we saw our futures going and whatnot, and he brought up this kind of fear, if you will, or anxiety that sometimes he has to grapple with, which is, fellowship. For him, it's what kind of fellowship he wants to do after residency, and the fear of kind of not knowing exactly what that's going to be, the fear of not knowing if he'll be able to even achieve it and do it, and the contemplation of just not doing a fellowship altogether. Depending on what specialty you're in, you can fellowship can very much so dictate what the course of your entire career will be, and one fellowship will be very different from another fellowship and stuff like that. And so we were talking, and it's he was mentioning that in addition to the stress of balancing residency and having to figure out applying to fellowship, he was mentioning this concept of uh, had to go through stress when applying to college, question of whether you'd get into the college you wanted or not, stress of applying to medical school, stress of whether you would get in or not, but then where, and then the stress in resident or in medical school of applying to residency, and whether you'd get in or not, and then where you would end up. And he was saying, why do I need to kind of keep going through this cycle? There's this constant concept of stress and ambiguity, and he was like, I don't want to live like this anymore. Why do I need to, you know, I should just forget about my thoughts for fellowship and just kind of stick to what I'm doing now and finish residency and go into practice. It was an interesting conversation just because a lot of times it's easy to think that once you've crossed a major hurdle, for everyone who hasn't crossed that hurdle yet, it's easy to think that life is very much so quote unquote set once you've crossed that hurdle. And that there really isn't much to worry about. It's interesting because we talked about this, and what I said was it's really this idea of risk and risk tolerance. How willing are we to uh, tolerate tolerate a level of risk in our lives? You know, when you it doesn't even just apply to medicine. Like you know when you seek to do something that requires a certain level of effort, and there's a question of whether you will be able to achieve it or not, right? Because there's certain things not everyone can make it to, right? Sometimes there's 100 people for like one or two spots sometimes, and whatever you're trying to set out to do, and only one or two people are going to make it. And even if we weed out people that are not that passionate or not that serious, you're still going to be left with a large chunk of people who can't make the cut. So then it comes down to the question of, why don't a lot of these people, we were kind of, going back and forth, and my friend was mentioning, where do these, why do these people still do it? What's the point? How do we narrow it down all the way to these 100 people anyway? And it really comes down to risk tolerance, the ability to handle risk. The truth of the matter is, before you even get to those 100 people, there's like hundreds more. But they self-select themselves out because of the risk. And it's not to blame anyone, or it's not to say, the people that chose not to take the risk are lesser than, or they couldn't handle it. It's really just to say it's a matter of preference. Some people are willing to tolerate a certain level of risk when it comes to doing something, and some people are not that comfortable with that risk. It can really, if you think about it, a lot of things in life come down to who's willing to take the risk. If you're a young entrepreneur starting out a new venture or a startup or something, you're taking a risk. If you quit your stable job and you choose to set out and do something new, that's a risk. You hear about the successes, but there's many, many, many people that fail, or quote unquote fail. I say quote unquote because I believe the concept of failure, I adopt the mentality of Kobe Bryant when I think about failure. There is no such thing as failure unless you truly give up. Until that point, you never fail. Anyway, and it's interesting. It's very interesting that the differentiation really between the people who really are successful and keep going, it truly is their ability to tolerate higher levels of risk, and understanding that there's a lot of hard work involved, and then there's a component of luck or randomness involved. We call that component different things. Luck is a very common name that we give to this component, or randomness. Religious people, spiritual people will call that component God. But it comes down to how willing are we to tolerate risk in what we're doing, and the unknown. If you've seen some of my previous videos, you'll see a lot of themes and kind of recurrent threads. In a previous video, I mentioned how in medical school, it's very important that you get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Being able to tolerate risk requires a certain level of comfort in being uncomfortable. Because at any point in time, you don't necessarily know what the outcome of what you're doing now is. So it begs the question, if you want to achieve something, but you're afraid of the risk involved, what do you do? So is the solution basically either you quit, or you have to live your life with a certain level of fear of outcome, right? If you're taking on risk, you're gonna have a little bit of fear. It's like an investor who's putting a lot of money into a venture. If that venture doesn't work out, they're putting themselves in a pretty bad spot. So what do you do? How do you address this or reconcile this kind of discomfort? And I'm not going to sit here and say adopt a stoic mentality and just accept things for what they are, because a lot of times that's what you will hear. That's what a lot of people will say. They will say, learn to accept the outcome. But I think what's helped me the most is to, at risk of sounding cliche, standing back and taking a look at the bigger picture. And that bigger picture is, you have to take a step back and ask yourself, what is the core ethos behind which drives you, right? So if someone is starting out on a venture, right? If someone's starting out a nonprofit, like a startup, and the goal of the startup is to streamline how money goes from, like donations into different charitable groups and make it more efficient or whatever. I'm just making this up on the fly. There's some ethos that's driving that person, right? We typically call this by specific tangible names. It's like a mission statement or something of that sort. Typically institutions and schools and programs have mission statements, right? And companies. So there's an ethos that's driving your efforts. So the question is, if you're set out to do something and you're taking on a lot of risk and you don't end up on the right side of that bet, you need to fall back on that ethos, that mission statement. What's driving you? Like, what's driving you, right? This is not a way to create an excuse or justification in your mind for giving up. That's not what this is about. It's about understanding that there's a larger purpose that's driving you, and you can fulfill that purpose and that ethos in a whole lot of different ways. And so an example, right? Maybe an example would be like, let's say someone wants to do a specific fellowship. They go into IM residency. They want to do a specific fellowship, and let's say it's a competitive fellowship, and they don't get it on their first try. What does that mean? Well, for a person that's not going to quit, that means multiple things. Just because they fell on the wrong side of the bet when they applied that time doesn't mean that their chapter is done. It's never done unless they say it's done, unless they decide that it's done. So what you do is, right, in that situation, a person could work as a hospitalist for a year and then reapply to that fellowship. They could pivot into another fellowship and they can fulfill their ethos. Because what is their ethos? Let's think about it. If you're a physician, you have passions, you have goals, and you want to do this. Maybe you want to do cardiology, maybe you want to do this or that. The ethos is very simple, though. You want to help people. You came to medicine to help people, right? There's a lot of different ways to do that. And once you fall back on your ethos, you realize that falling on the wrong side of the bet that time doesn't detract from your ethos. Like your mission statement still exists. You're still on the path in fulfilling that mission statement. So in theory, other than a change in your path, nothing else has happened here. No other change has happened. And there's never a concept of failure. Anyway, before this video gets long or whatnot, this was a conversation that I had with one of my friends, and I thought it was worth sharing, just because this concept of risk, especially for those in medicine, and it's a long process. You have a lot of different points where you take small risks. Outcome is never guaranteed, but if you're able to think about this from the idea of falling back on your basic premise and principles that kind of make you who you are. When you write a personal statement to medical school and stuff, that's kind of what they're trying to get at. I'm not going to say a personal statement captures everything. It's part of the application process, but it's the best that you can do in today's world, and that's why programs require that. But the idea is they're trying to get at, what is your principle? What is your ethos? What drives you? And it's to understand that, in the case of setbacks and whatnot, you have your ethos to fall back on. They want to see that you have something to fall back on as you move forward. Those are the people that do the best. Those are the people who are resilient, and all these other words that we give to this. All I'm really doing right here in this video is I just explained something. I just basically gave you the 10-minute version of the word grit, resilience. And I'm sure you've seen or heard of the book by Angela Duckworth about grit, and how that's the key factor that distinguishes a lot of high-performing people. And that's really what it comes down to. As long as you know what you're driving, your North Star, your compass is, your ethos, you'll never fall on the wrong side of the bet. There will never be a such thing as a too risky option. So yeah. Anyway, that was just a thought that I wanted to share. On that note, this once again might be my last video in a while, and I've had the privilege to speak with a lot of you, as I always have, and I truly enjoy it. I hope everyone is doing well. Good luck with everyone, no matter where they are in life and their process. And as always, as someone in medical school, I'm very happy to help out anyone, anywhere pre-med, in medical school, etc. I'm more than happy to help anyone out. I'm available as a resource. Just feel free to email me or send me a DM on Instagram. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in that next one.